Hey everybody, tonight we're going to be talking about the 3-level mechanical pendant slider. I have a few also known as that we're going to talk about here because I've seen it called a few different things. I've seen it called the Huang and possibly the carry-on. We'll talk about that in a minute. I know I have a tendency to say the latest thing I got is the greatest, but I'm going to go out on a limb here. This is the best made mechanical 3-level slider that I've encountered yet. So please stick around. Okay, as I was saying, the names are a little different depending on what you see, where you go. Huang, if I'm pronouncing that right, was what G1 called it. And Carry On is what I got through some rough translations on my phone of the packaging. So I was going to go with Carry On, but then I went to G1 and saw what they were calling it. I'm giving it the general title of a 3-level mechanical pendant slider because there's nothing else like that out there right now that I'm aware of, at least like this. So real quickly, let's talk about the main feature on this one, which I don't have present just yet, and that would be the pendant attachment. Off to the right here you see a good photo of the fanciest version of this, which was being sold for quite a high price. Anyhow, what I wanted to get out of the way quickly was the pendant attachment is kind of a gimmick. I would be afraid to carry it on the pendant on my neck just because it would be very likely to pop off and get lost, and we'll do a little quick test with this one and I'll show you how easily that occurs. But it does come in, so you see these 3 different materials, and I don't think there's any other options because these are the lightest materials you could go with. Titanium, PEI, and PC, or polycarbonate, and those prices range too. We'll talk about that in a second. But the lighter materials, the plastic ones, probably, I'd feel safer with that around my neck. But wait till you see the demonstration here, and you'll see why I say that's sort of a gimmick. Nice idea, but unfortunately, especially with the expensive brass one I showed you there, not brass, but the expensive brass and copper inlaid one I showed you a little bit ago, you certainly wouldn't want to lose that, and it would be the heaviest of all. So let's move on from there. So we'll do some usual stuff like the comparisons, and while I'm getting that stuff ready, I will tell you that the general pricing for these was the least expensive being polycarbonate, and that was about $73, and PEI 81, titanium 88. Now, it's not only one of the best that I've encountered, it's also one of the smallest, so I had to pick some things that were close in size. Fortunately, the 2 that I usually compare it to right off the bat are pretty close in size. Mackie CP3. Now this is not mechanical, it's magnetic. Doesn't really matter what or how it works. These are just for size comparison. There we go. Okay. And then the Top B by Metal Toys DZ. And I don't know if any of you have any of these, but the original 3-level mechanical slider from 01 is this, and I would have said before that this was the best mechanical slider that I've ever encountered. This has taken its place, but you see the left one is much smaller. Another one similar in size are this and several other ones. I didn't want to bring them all out, but the titanium sliders from Viva on AliExpress. Now this one says Halu, but I've seen Halu products sold on the Viva store on AliExpress. But anyhow, they're all about the same size as this, is what I was getting at. And these were the smallest, most compact, nicely made sliders I've encountered in general. but this one is even smaller. And this one has a middle layer that's titanium, but the really great thing is that there's never any titanium actually coming into contact with titanium. These plastic inserts keep everything separated. And the titanium has a very soft, just like this one, a very soft blasted finish. So it's not rough at all. It's not like sandpaper. Real quick, you know, when I was looking for ones that were the same size, I was like, oh, well, there's that one. And, you know, the CP5, I often want to say, was overlooked by all of us. Early on, it was one of the first mechanicals, and I just didn't appreciate it because everything was magnetic at the time. In fact, I thought this was kind of clunky because it didn't go as smoothly or pop as nicely as the magnetic ones. And now I'm not interested in buying magnetic sliders much at all. But this was an early one, and it had achieved so much in such a small amount of space so early on, and it's just amazing that Mackie, or you know, it's Mackie. Still Mackie is still Mackie, but the actual guy Mackie broke off and became 01. If you haven't heard that story already, but I'm amazed they didn't do a different version of this with a more dense pattern to it. And if they had the opportunity, or they were allowed to, I don't know what kind of agreements they came to after that company sort of split up, but if they made a CP5 with a dense pattern, I would jump on that, and I think a lot of other people would too. So let's get dimensions on this thing. It is exactly 40 millimeters tall, 20 millimeters wide, and between 12 and 13 millimeters thick. When it's fully extended, get this out here, just under 95. Now for weight, there are no magnets in this. About 34 grams. So what was in the box? Well, here's the box. Pretty simple. That up here. The box, use some close-ups of it in case you want to get a translator and see what you can read. Didn't make a lot of sense to me, especially the front label. We have the rear label. I'm not even going to go into what the translations were. They varied. Here's the pendant piece. That's also titanium, appears to be. You also get a neck chain, I think is 24 inches in length or so. And this little bag of extra pieces. 4 extra screws, fantastic. 4 extra black ceramic balls, and 4 extra springs. Now the springs are the same, and there are no other balls. Would have been a good opportunity to throw in different balls for different textures. But the balls happen to be sort of a standard 3 millimeter size. This time they measure to be 2.63, which is pretty close to the 2.67 that we normally see when talking about 3 millimeter balls. So this is a thinner than I'm used to seeing, thinner than usual ball chain, or dog tag chain is what we'd call it in the States. Just drop it down through there. Okay. So these two little prongs here, get where you can see it. Maybe I better wrap it around my finger, huh? So there are 2 little prongs, a little hole in the middle for the chain to go through. And what you do is, when it's in this open position, if you want, whatever side you want to face forward is the side you want to install this on the back of. So if I wanted this to face forward, I'd put it back here. But I like this a little bit better. So there's 2 little holes here and here that are right next to these 2 screws. These 2 little points drop down into these holes, just like that. And when you, I'll try to just get the top level, when you slide this back up, it covers that over, and now it's captured. And then this front side just slides back like normal. And you think that is pretty darn cool. And it is. And again, I think if you had the very lightweight polycarbonate or PEI one, that it would not really be an issue probably. But I have a test lined up. I'm going to do a couple different takes of it and show you what happens when we drop it from a simple height of 2 inches. So I've developed this little test here. It's very scientific. What I do is hang the pendant from my phone to where you can just see it. Now it is currently about 8 inches away from the phone. What I'm going to do is drop at a distance of 2 inches. So for you, that'll look like this. Now, going from here to here, I'm going to be lifting the chain up this high and letting it go. So let's do that. Let's get down here. Okay, this hand's got to stay the same place. Bring this up to 2 inches and drop it. And you can see that the pendant can come right out. So, that back together again. Do the same test. I'll just take these down. You have to take my word for it. I'm going to drop it about 2 inches. Matter of fact, I'll just lift it up from the bottom. So here is where I started. Here's where I'm going. And it opens up to the point where it'll come down. So yeah, I'm a little concerned about the idea of having this around your neck, especially if you had the really expensive and the most heavy one. So we'll just leave that off for now, but you get the idea. I do think it's really neat. I think it's innovative. It just needs some improvements because, boy, wouldn't it be a shame to lose it. Now, if you had your shirt tucked in all the time, then you'd probably be safe. But I would be a little bit hesitant to do that. So it's 11 clicks in each section. And I don't know what is printed on the front or the back. My camera will not translate it. But there are 3 titanium plates here with actually 2 synthetic plates that sandwich in between there as well. They're both the same, but they all tie together in a nice way, and they retain the springs and balls. And right now this has 1 spring and ball per side, but when we take it apart, you'll see that you can put 2 balls and 2 springs per side, which increases the tension, maybe makes the sound a little bit greater. But we'll be doing that in a moment. And in fact, I thought that was probably a good way to make this, because right now it just has 1 ball and 1 spring per side, so it doesn't take very much force at all for it to open up, as you just saw in the test we did. And I thought, well, it came with these extra springs. Maybe it has lightweight or light strength springs in it, and these are the strong springs. But that's not the case. I measured the springs. These are 5 millimeter tall. The wire diameter is right around 0.30, and the diameter is right around 0.3 or 3 millimeters. And these are all what I would call the harder springs. So I don't have any harder than this springs to try. I kind of thought, well, boy, that's kind of weak, and if I put the stronger springs in there, that would help retain these plates together, and it would be less likely to come apart when it's hanging on that pendant. But it turns out, like I said, it already comes with the strongest springs. And when I put in 2 balls per side, that should have increased the strength quite a bit. Well, when we do that, when we take it apart, that's what we're going to do. We're going to put the extra balls and springs in, and we'll quickly do that same test with the pendant again at 2 inches and see if it made any improvement. I don't recall if I've done that test yet or not, but my guess is probably not very much. And again, if you have the PEI or the polycarbonate version of this, Those would be so light, I imagine, that it probably wouldn't be an issue wearing it around your neck. But that's entirely up to you. Okay, let's take this puppy apart. So these are what is this? The T8. T8 Torx. Okay, now the spring and ball are located directly under my fingertip here. So I'm going to put my thumb over that and then slide this off. And just empty it out. There's a spring and a ball. So here you have a threaded hole and a threaded hole for the screws. Here is an open hole and an open hole for the neck chain to fit into. And then you have these two larger holes in the middle. That's where the springs and balls go. And we only had one in there. It does not matter. I tried it both ways. It doesn't matter if you're just going to use one ball per side. It doesn't matter if you put it here or here. But when we put this back together, we're going to be putting both balls and springs in. And we'll do that right now because we're going to take the other side off and do the exact same thing. Both sides are exactly the same. If you're ever having trouble getting these little bags open, just hold it like that and twist it. That's my tip for the day. Now, we don't need most of that stuff, but let's get her all out here. I'm going to drop a spring into each of the large holes. And then we will take one ball each. I haven't tried other balls yet. This is so soft and satisfying with the balls that came in it that I don't really feel the need to put, like I often want to try the POM balls that I have because they make things a lot softer and quieter. But I don't feel the need to do that with this. So once you push it in about halfway. You want to make sure that when the screws go down through that that little track is underneath them, you know. So just put it in there about halfway, and then we can put these screws back in. Now here's an important point, and I want to stress why it's always so important. I'm going to put my finger back over the back here again. Again, to stress why it's so important to be careful putting screws in, especially when they're screwing into a synthetic material, and that's what happens here. The screw passes through this first layer, the middle layer, but then it engages on this side. So that is a very thin, only 2-3 millimeters thick piece of plastic, some type of plastic, synthetic, and that's where the threads are. So if you over tighten this, you'll strip those threads right out. If you push this in and start cranking it in without getting that initial thread lined up, you will cross the threads. You'll ruin this. So always be mindful of your screwing. I keep threatening to do a little video called How to Screw, and I still might do it. So again, I always turn counterclockwise until I feel a little snap or hear a pop. Sometimes you don't hear it. If you can't, then go forward, go clockwise then, but proceed very slowly, and if there's any resistance, back off. Don't ever force these things in. And I'm just getting that down and snugging it very gently. I don't want to tighten it at all very much. Risk doing any damage. I'll just keep a close eye on them as I use this and make sure that they're not coming loose. If they did start to come loose, you'd eventually find out because it would stop closing the whole way. The screws would interfere with the closing of this. So no need to over tighten those guys. Now let's take off this side. Same as before. Thumb over the top of that. Now we'll just leave that. Ah, damn it. Well, too late. Sorry I put you through that. Okay, that only took a couple seconds to correct. Let's take off the correct side. It's all hung up on how to screw. I forgot what I was screwing. Yeah, so this side will now have just the one spring and ball in it, and we will put the other spring and ball in the open hole. And replace the top. Just push on down on those with my thumb, get the dovetail lined up on here, and then just start to slide it over the top. Go about halfway, and reinsert the screws. I don't know what the middle piece, the two middle synthetic pieces are made from. If I had to guess, it would be POM. And then I could make a correction here too. Someone who knows better than I did, and I looked it up after I talked with him. The POM, I've been saying POM and nylon are the same thing, and they're not. They feel close, but they're not the same thing. The chemical names are different. And this, I can tell you, this is not Teflon. It's stronger than that, so maybe it is POM. Those are typically the two types of liner that we see. Sometimes you'll see PEI used as a liner, like on that goofy named, what's it called? Doesn't matter. I just did recently a review on it. Something. It's gonna bug me now. The Demon King. Why? Why do you have to take a decent slider, put a skull on it, call it the Demon King? I think that appeals to Americans, I guess. I don't know. But I say this is a winner. If I had the extra money to blow, I would buy one in each material. But I'm quite happy with titanium, and I will not be carrying it around my neck. Maybe there are some ways that they could improve on that. I don't know. I had an interesting knife. I'll show you that. In fact, I'll pause here and get it. But I do love the idea of the pendant. I think it's really clever, but I just don't trust it. Like when I have this on display in my case, I leave the pendant piece in. But if I don't have this attached. Let's just take that off. Where is that little end at? There it is. Yeah, when I put it on display in my case there, it looks like this. I just leave it like that. But as soon as it leaves the house, I leave this in the case. And yeah, let me show you that knife. So I've been collecting, you could say, junk knives most of my life, since age 10 or 12. But this one just came from like a Big Lots. Sheffield is a name that might have been a popular American knife maker at one time, but I think it was bought out by someone in China, whatever. A lot of these knives, obviously made in China, not a high quality, but decent enough. And my rules for acquiring pocket knives, flashlights, lighters, and stuff, my main rule is that it has to be mechanically interesting. And that's what most of my pieces are. They're not just a plain pocket knife. There's something special about them. On this one, it's this little attachment piece. And you can remove this lanyard piece by just pushing down on this little button. It's entirely mechanical. There's a spring that holds this button up in place. And when you lift that button, when you push that button in, you're changing the inside diameter of the shaft from thin, which goes through this opening, to thick, which won't go through that opening. So when I try to push it in right now, it's pushing against the thick diameter. When I apply pressure to this and push it down, it opens up, and now it's latched in. If you could apply something like that somehow to a lanyard attachment feature on a haptic, that would be pretty darn neat. But again, I commend them for innovating, and This is interesting, and if you had the plastic synthetic versions, the PEI or the PC one, it's a lot lighter. Maybe you would be a lot less likely to lose it. I'd still tuck in my shirt. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to try and answer them. Thanks for watching. Bye.